Hello, John Robinson here with Lippert and ranchhand and Kurt with this afternoon with Taylor Sheridan. A few questions for you, Taylor.
Great, hit me.
Many people say you have created the Yellowstone Effect. Can you speak to that and how it's positively impacted your vision for the performance horse industry?
Well, anyone that's been trying to buy a horse or sell one in the past 5 years understands exactly what the Yellowstone effect is. And my goal with Yellowstone primarily, and then a lot of these other things I do too, was really just to introduce the world to this way of life. There's so many people that now live in big cities and they have no idea where their food comes from. They don't know what it takes to run a ranch, and not that Yellowstone is entirely accurate. It's a dramatized world, but it's rooted in truth and authenticity. And it made cowboy cool again. And all of a sudden, and I would imagine ranch hands experienced it as well. Everything in this space has really accelerated and taken off. And, it's exciting to watch.
Yes, definitely has, and ranchhand has experienced it. Next question. Your headquarters is based in Texas. Ranchhand, as you know, is American-made, also based in Texas. What's something unique about the state that you would want to share that somebody may not realize about Texas?
Gosh, the interesting thing about the state, and obviously its motto being it's a whole other country.
It could be a country,
which it is. And if you look at all the different areas, whether you're in East Texas where you've got the big pines,
yes, sir.
You go down to South Texas, we've got 1,000 miles of coastline. You got the Rio Grande Valley, you've got the mountains, the Pecos Mountains in far west Texas, and then up in where the 4.6 is, in that area, you go from the Stake Plains, what we call the Llano Estacado, up until you get in the southern tip of the Great Plains, and to see all those terrain changes, and really, if we're going to talk about our way of life in this world, the way that people ranch and farm in those areas changes so much from each region.
Yes, sir.
So that's you can be in a part of Texas and feel like you're in Arizona. You can be in a part of Texas, feel like you go through Paladera Canyon, you're going to feel like you're in the Grand Canyon, and you go east and you're in the Pines. Heck, you might as well be in Georgia.
I was going to say that Texas sounds like it has every region of this country in one location.
It really does.
Yeah, awesome. What kind of hazards are out there on your ranch? You mentioned the 4.6's Bosque Ranch also. So what kind of hazards do you have to watch out for, not only yourself and your workers, but the animals also? Are there any special tools or precautions that you use?
There's pick your poison.
Yeah, true in Texas, right?
Yeah, the old saying that everything in Texas is trying to bite you, stick you, or prick you and sting you. It's true. So obviously you have any number of issues that you're going to deal with. I would say weather is probably the biggest hazard that we all face. Whether it's extreme temperatures of heat or cold or rain or hail or tornadoes, we have it all. And, on the ranch, if you get a good rainstorm, it's going to wash out all the roads, and so then you're going to have to go out there and remake all your roads, and there's fences, and it's ranching. Everything, you can't get life insurance. You can't. We're ranchers.
Right.
It's dangerous.
Right. Well, and one thing you didn't mention that I noticed here lately is fires. They pop up, and when a wildfire starts out there, like you said, some of your ranches, especially the 4.6's, it could go for 100,000 acres,
and there's no one to call,
and there's no way to stop it.
We have our own fire trucks out there.
Oh, really?
And they know how to use them. So in fact, we had a fire a couple of years ago that we had to get ahead of, up in Dixon Creek, and where you've got, if we have a drought and you get high temperatures and 30-mile-an-hour winds, it's a recipe for fire for sure.
Yes, sir. So you mentioned fire trucks. Any other equipment that you use to keep the animals? What about when you get one of those nasty snowstorms you talked about?
I got so much equipment. Whether it's skid steers or sky lifts or front end loaders or excavators, we've got road graders. We have, we got it all.
Yes, sir. So we got a common friend in Matt Mills. Sounds like he's a personal friend of yours. I read about him. Read an article today right here about him. What's something that we may not know about Matt, and what does it mean to have him on your team at the Bosque Ranch?
Well, it means the world. Number one, he is a great friend, and he's a master of his craft, uh, uh, horsemanship, and showing these horses and getting them trained,
Right.
And you know they have to want to do it. The horses, you
Mm-hmm.
can't make them do it. And one of the ways that they want to do it is how they've been taught to do it. So where's that gentle hand that encourages them
Mm-hmm.
and finding those animals that really want to perform. And he's one of the best there is at that. Aside from being a good friend and a real positive influence, he's a big role model to a lot of people because he didn't come from rural West Texas. I mean, he's from Long Beach, California, and he grew up.
There's a unique thing.
Yeah, and he grew up, near the beach, and he wanted to go be a pro athlete, and yet he rode a horse when he was a kid and fell in love with it and decided that that's what he wanted to do. So then he moved to Scottsdale, Arizona, and was training out. That's where we are now
Right.
for 25 years before he finally moved to Texas and trains at Bosque Ranch now.
That there again, there's that unique question that and you mentioned pro athlete, man. What y'all do day in day out is definitely a professional athlete.
You are, if you're going to show at that level, you are a professional athlete, and the horse
Correct.
is certainly a professional athlete.
Correct. So many people look at rodeo, regardless what you're doing, they think, oh, they're just riding a horse. There's more to than just riding a horse.
Well,
To your point, the training.
in rodeo,
yeah.
they're all athletes. The
That's
rough
correct.
stock is athletes. They were bred to do it. They were taught to do it. They crave it. Everyone thinks, oh, you're putting somebody on that bucket horse and the flank strap is hurting them. No,
Right.
it's not. It's a cue to let them know.
Correct.
And if you put it on one that doesn't want to buck, they're not going to buck. They're just going to try and get it off. And then we go, well, that's not a bucker.
Right.
So
right.
so the horses are bred to do that. They're trained to do it, and they thrive on it as well.
Yes.
And that's how you have a horse like Virgil. Why is that the greatest horse ever?
Right.
Because he wants to be, and he has the physical abilities. So they're all athletes.
That's right. So ranchhand, Kurt / Lippert are all proud sponsors of your Bosque Ranch. What does the future hold for you and our brand of partners to fit in the support of your goals for the future? Where do you see us going to the next level?
Well, the one thing about this country that people fail to realize, and obviously there's plenty of services for people that live in the city that we need.
Yes.
Okay, out in the country, and yet what you guys build, what you make, it's on all my trucks that I use, and I need them. If you ever hit a bump gate without one, you'll know what I'm talking about. We feed the country.
Yes, sir.
At the end of the day. Now, and I raise a lot of cattle, but Bosque Ranch exists to celebrate a way of life and to educate, and so I try to have a tremendous amount of events there that open up this way of life to new people. Always, that's really the goal. There isn't another sport that I can think of aside from these performance horse events, and that includes team roping, and it can include barrel racing, but obviously for me it's the cutting, the cow horse, and the reining,
Right.
that you can actually go participate with your kids. You'll have mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, and the kids all showing out here, and so they can do it together. And as opposed to watching your kid kick a soccer ball around, it's something that you can all do together, and it's an extension of a necessary tool, which is what a horse is. It's still the best way to go gather cattle and work cattle. In fact, I don't know another way. And because of the performance horse, generally horses are better bred now. They're better trained, which makes them safer for everybody.
Yes, sir. You've been very vocal over the last couple of years about the performance horse industry. After the recession back in 2008, you've invested personally and professionally into this sport. Where's the performance horse industry heading, in your opinion? And how were the challenges addressed that were there? Were other leaders in the industry or the sport performance horse industry? are there other leaders like yourself, and what drives them to make it, take it to the next level?
Well, so in 2009, when we had or eight, when we really started to see the recession take hold, for those who do this as a hobby, and I guess it probably affected boating and every other hobby as well. The first thing to go is the hobby, right?
Yes,
But with this, when you sell the horses and no one's buying the horses and the horses go away, you can't just snap your finger and get more horses. You can go buy another boat. They're still making boats. So I was filming Yellowstone, and I'd included a lot of performance horse scenes in Yellowstone to introduce the world to them. And I was sitting there with Tim McQuay, who's really the grandfather of reining, and Andrea Fapani, Tom McCutcheon, and we're talking about the state of reining in particular, and how the quality and the number of horses had come down because people weren't breeding them because they couldn't sell them, and everyone felt like the industry was really collapsing on itself. Same thing was happening in cutting and cow horse, and so I decided to do a show, which was the Run for a Million, and create an unscripted show around that. So I put on a horse show, and then I made a TV show about the horse show. Okay, and I put up $1 million. I didn't. Paramount did.
Right.
I asked them for $1 million to give away as prize money to the winners. And people have tried this before. I was lucky to have a platform most people don't have. Most people don't have a television series.
correct.
So I was, it took Paramount getting on board. It took the reining horse industry to trust me to do it. So for those people to show up and actually show, it took the commitment and the trust of people like you guys at Lippert and Ranchhand to say, hey, we're going to get behind this.
Right.
We don't know how it's going to necessarily help our business right now, but we think what you're doing is good. We're going to get behind it.
Yeah.
And everyone did. Everyone from Gary Carpenter, who was the president of the NRHA at that time, executive director, Jay Winborn, who used to be the executive director at the NRCHA, now he's at the NCHA, getting behind everything that I've done and supporting it, and everyone's supporting it.
Right.
And they understood the goal for me wasn't, I'm not trying to make any money off this. When you give away as much money as I give away at these things, you're pretty much guaranteed to not make any money. But it's a fantastic event that's introduced a lot of people to the world. And there are other people that have started to do the same thing.
Right.
It's increased the prize money at all of these events, rather than everyone shuttering it. And it's doubled the prize money at the reining futurity. It's doubled it at the cutting futurity. You're starting to see massive payouts at the cow horse events, and you're starting to see the crowds.
Right.
And that's the most important thing, because you start curious as a spectator, then you decide you want to be a participant. And so for this to thrive, and it needs to thrive, because this is the commercial for a way of life, number one.
Correct.
Same with rodeo.
Correct.
Okay. And these are the horses, these professional athletes that could cost $500,000 to $1 million of some of these horses. They are the ones who are breeding the future of all quarter horses.
Correct.
Ranch horses, the using horses. And if you're a team roper, then you've seen the quality of those horses improve dramatically in the past decade.
Right.
And those rope horse futurities are doing the exact same thing. And so the growth in this industry has been fantastic. I'm not the only person who's out there pushing it. The World Series of Roping has done as much for it as anybody.
Yes.
The PRCA has gotten behind this and continues to expand. You've seen rigging rallies pop up, and that's the Steiner family that did that originally, and they didn't have any intention of making any money. They did it to promote the sport. So there's a lot of people. Teton Ridge has come along, and they just did this thing at the American and had 15,000 people watching the top cow horse guys and cutters and reiners, and all of these things are great. So it feels like, to me, for the first time since the 80s or early 90s, really, the performance horse industry is on the ascend and not the descent.
Right. I'm going to say, it appears you've turned the corner, and not just you, the industry has turned the corner and is heading upwards in the right direction that you and others have had a vision for years to go that way.
And the stars aligned to execute it, and that's what we all did.
That's right. That's right. Thank you. You're a very powerful storyteller. What are some topics you haven't covered but want to?
Well,
Open floor for you, Taylor.
I've got a couple that'll be coming out in the next year or so
Okay.
that dive into some things that I think are really fascinating. You know, what's interesting to me is showcase a world that people don't know about that's right beside them.
Okay.
You know, and that's really what I've done with Yellowstone, a lot of the other shows.
Yeah.
It helps us understand ourselves better and other people. So I've got a show called Landman with Billy Bob Thornton that's about what a landman is he's an oil speculator. He's going to go out and try and find mineral leases and then try and find oil, because oil sells for a lot of money. So that's what. So I'm going to look at that world and not just that world, but the world of energy, which can mean turbines and solar panels and everything else we're coming up with.
Right.
Because there's the new word that's floating around. I don't want to get political, but misinformation.
Yeah.
But everyone that's pointing their finger going, that's misinformation. Well, so is that.
Right.
No one knows what they're talking about.
Right.
So I like to hold the mirror up to the world and go, that's the reflection. You can like it or not, but that's what it is.
Yeah, sure.
And so yeah, I think that'll be a good one.
All right. Looking forward to it. You mentioned a while ago you give away a lot of money at these events, and if you make some, great. But is there one event or anything out there that you personally take pride in backing or getting behind? And is there a way that Lippert and Ranchhand can jump on and help you with a charity or some event in the future?
Yes, I'd love to have you all as involved as you want to be, and you already are in a lot of the cuttings that we do at Bosque Ranch, and as much as you can and want to support the Run for Million. I think it's I'm the only guy that's running nonprofit horse shows, and that doesn't mean they're 501c3s. It means the way I set them up, they don't make any money.
Right.
They don't make a profit. I'm a terrible businessman. But there are some things I really try to support these youth foundations.
Yeah, sure.
With the NCHA, the NRHA, NRCHA, because that's the future. That's the next generation that's going to come along.
Right.
And at the end of the day, like I said before, the performance horse world, it's just a commercial for a way of life.
Yes.
And empires fall when they stop making their own food. When you start outsourcing your food to other places, you're enriching that place, and now you're dependent on them. And so we need other people to step up and say, hey, I'm gonna plow that field. I'm gonna raise those cattle. I'm gonna do that. And it starts here. It can start here.
Right.
And so I think those are really, really good foundations. I try to avoid raising money or donating money to organizations that exist to be organizations, because then basically I'm just paying a bunch of people's salaries.
Correct.
It's one of the things about the foundations that are so good is they're largely volunteer run. Maybe there's one or two people that are in there, but they're volunteer run, and they don't have an infrastructure expense. They're just there to promote a thing and support these kids. On a more serious note, and I've delved into this in Yellowstone a lot in my movie Wind River. There's an organization called the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center, which is a support system for missing and murdered and assaulted women on the reservation, which is a real epidemic problem that gets no attention because there's no federal structure or state structure there. So they do that hard work, and I try to raise as much money for them as I possibly can.
Right.
Because it goes straight out to help people who really need it.
Right, instead of some salary, like you mentioned.
Exactly.
That's all awesome stuff, and I know they appreciate that too, and we'll definitely continue to support.
Well, it's appreciated.
From our brands too. One last question, if you got one more in.
You bet.
All right. Since 2008, a time when the performance horse industry faced many challenges, how did you identify those challenges, and how did it lead you to change and to address them? We talked about it earlier.
Yeah, we kind of covered it, but it's the same thing. I saw the same thing everybody else saw. The interest was fading. Right. People don't seem to have it. They don't seem to have it. They don't have it. The more people that move into a big urban center, it's real hard to take your horse with you, right?
They frown on that, don't they?
Yeah. So it became a challenge. It became a real expense. It became a game of kings, so to speak. And whenever something becomes that, then now the only people that can play it are the kings and the queens. And when they get bored, then no one's playing it.
Yeah.
Right. So it was about expanding it and appealing to a wider audience. but also making it to where, as these trainers have gotten so much better, that people can actually enter into this, right? That they can find a horse that they can ride and they can learn how to train it and show it. And so it was making sure that categories existed for those competitors to come in and show the horse that they raised themselves and be competitive, as opposed to just having to win the lottery to go buy one of these things. So I think that it's in all of these events, cutting, cow horse reining, you know, you're seeing this new generation of trainer, and you're watching these horses. Whether it's horses can go from the rope into the rein into the cut, we've seen them all move around, and it's improved the breed and it's expanded the breed, and now there's more opportunities for people to get in. I didn't recognize anything everyone else didn't recognize. I just happened to be in a unique position to do something about it.
Correct. And willing to do something about it. You know, a lot of people see situations, but they're thinking, well, Taylor will do it, you know, or John's going to do that. I'll just sit back and jump in.
Let someone else.
So thank you for the time today.
Hey, appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.